weeks in office, I got a frantic call from a mom whose daughter did not live in my district, but whose adult daughter had been diagnosed with breast cancer. This young lady had to have a double mastectomy according to her surgeons and her oncologist because of the type of aggressive genetic breast cancer that it was. The only trick was the insurance company was not going to cover the surgery 100% because the young woman had not had a BRCA test, genetic test. Have y'all heard the BRCA test? I had not heard of it before. I don't know where you get a test. I don't know how much it costs. And I don't know if insurance covered it. Like I had no idea. And I learned all this from this woman. And so I happen to know a guy at the insurance company who shall remain nameless. He's still my insider, and he's on the inside track right now. But I said, I can't make any promises, but let me make a phone call and see what I can do. The very next day at 9 a.m., I called the insurance company. I explained the situation, the dire situation. This was a very aggressive form of breast cancer. She had it on one side, and if she wasn't going to get the double mastectomy, it was guaranteed to come back 90% chance. 3 hours later, the insurance company called me back, and the medical team, guess what? Re-reviewed her file. And guess what? They were going to cover her surgery 100%. That is why I do this job. I can't make any promises, but I can make a phone call. Literally, on the way down, this gives me goosebumps. On the way down on the ride here tonight, an hour before I left to come to Somerville, I got a call from a constituent who just got diagnosed with breast cancer. The doctor said she needs to get a double mastectomy. She wants a lumpectomy. She doesn't want to do that. And she was begging for my help to get a second opinion. Within the hour, within the drive, from the time I came here to the time I arrived, I called the hospital. I know somebody over there in oncology, particularly for breast cancer, now that I've done this a couple times, and she's slated to get an appointment within the next 2 weeks. So I will do anything for our constituents as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal. But that's what we do. I work 7 days a week. I love the job, and I love making a difference in the lives of the people in the Low Country. I grew up here. I went to school here. I'm raising my family here. In fact, when I dropped out of Stratford High School in 1995, one exit up, I got my first job at the Waffle House on College Park Road on exit 203. Because my father, a retired general, my mother, a retired school teacher, said, if you're going to stop going to school, you got to start going to work. And I learned a couple things at the Waffle House. I learned about the value of hard work. And I learned, hey, maybe I wanted to go back to high school and get my high school diploma. I didn't go back to high school, but I did go meet Mary Thornley at Trident Tech. And I took college classes at Tech on Rivers Avenue and would eventually get my high school diploma, would eventually go to the Citadel and meet and yell at Mayor Touchberry when he was in the line as a knob with the head shaved and everything. He didn't shed a tear though. I didn't make you cry, so that was good. But ever since then, having service, the value of hard work is what I try to bring to the table. And it's an immense honor. I love the job. The people that work in our office love the job. And contrary to media reports, we didn't lose all of our staff. Most of our staff stayed with us. Y'all know the faces here locally. I did get a new chief. Where's Lori? Dr. Katad, who has a PhD in leadership, took over the DC office. New coach, new team. We do have a new DC staff, and some of them are here tonight. We're super excited. And they're doing great, and they love serving each and every one of you. So next I'm going to talk about the committees that I'm on, and then some updates on some of the major legislation we've been working on, and then we'll do some Q&A before I hit the road. Number one, most members of Congress might serve on one or two committees. I've got 4, and let me tell you why. The first committee I work on is the House Armed Services Committee. In the Low Country, either in the 6th or in the 1st Congressional District, we have about half of all military installations, military bases in the state right here in the Low Country. So either your base is in the 1st, or you work in the 1st, live in the 1st, or your base is in the 6th, and you live in the 1st, whatever. Between the 2 congressional districts, we have half of all the bases. And in fact, we're going to have the largest Coast Guard installation right in North Charleston in the next decade. That's happening at FLETC. And so it's really important that we have a say on the NDAA or the National Defense Authorization Act every single year. It's one of the largest authorization of spending bills that we have in the House. It's very important that we have a seat at the table during those negotiations, and we do. The second committee that I'm on is on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. As you all know, about a third of all veterans in the entire state of South Carolina live right here in the Low Country. And I know firsthand, because almost everybody in my family is either active duty or a veteran, what our needs are. Now recently, one fact I want to tell you that I and our family just learned about with the VA, I don't know if you all know, but they have a geriatric program. Recently found out because my father has had some health problems, but they will come out to your home, and I'm telling everybody that I know, and if you're having trouble with your mobility, they will evaluate your home. They will provide measures, whether it's a walker or a cane, an electric scooter, arm rails, handrails, etc. They will provide advice and even come over and help install those measures for you. So I didn't know the VA had that. Really neat program. I'm telling everybody I know, but it's very important that we have a seat at the table again regarding veterans issues. I get a lot of great ideas talking to vets in the district, and so keep those ideas coming. We're working very hard. Chairman Boss is doing a great job, but we work very hard on that committee too. The third committee that I'm on is on the House Oversight Committee. This is the one you guys see about in the news a lot. It's the sexy stuff. It's the Freedom Caucus. It's the squad. It is a lot of fighting. However, that's where we do all of our investigations. They all are in either judiciary or they're in the Oversight Committee. And the Oversight Committee, ironically, even though you have two very different corners of both parties on that committee, it's actually been the most bipartisan committee that I serve on. And I say this because I'm also the chairman of the Cybersecurity Subcommittee. Ro Khanna, Jerry Connolly, and others and I, these are members on the other side of the aisle, but we get a lot of nonpartisan, bipartisan work done in the cybersecurity realm on oversight, because oversight has jurisdiction over cyber. The last bill that I passed out of committee, out of the Oversight Committee, and passed out of the floor of the House was a cybersecurity bill called the Mace Act, surprise, but it would waive a 4-year college degree for anybody that wanted to work in cybersecurity and IT at the federal level. There are a lot of young people, as you know, you might have children and grandchildren that never got a 4-year degree, but they can code like it's nobody's business. And we had a member of our family who's a coder, never went to college. The kid's making over $250,000 a year coding. I think he's 22, already owns his first home. I think when I was a coder too, but when I was starting out in 1999, I was making $35K a year. It's a lot different now, but it's a great skill set to have, but you want it so that you don't have to have a 4-year degree. If you're qualified for that job, we want you to get that job. And so, for example, we get a lot of work done on that committee. AI is another place where I work on AI in that committee as well. There are some other issues that are really important to the Low Country. This district, the 1st Congressional District, is the 10th, and you all know this, it's the 10th fastest growing congressional district in the nation. Is anybody from New York here? Okay, we got one of those, should be more of you here, but you're all coming down from New York, New Jersey, anybody from New Jersey? New Jersey, Connecticut, California, and California, there we go, we got California. But Ohio, y'all are, okay, there's someone from every one of those states, so you all know that the growth that we're having cannot keep up with our infrastructure. Now, a couple of things I want you to know, that over the last 3 years, I've been able to obtain over $300 million either authorized or appropriated for our district over the last 3 years. Most of that are stormwater projects, water resources projects, flooding projects, a little bit of infrastructure. We got $20 million for the Hilton Head Island Airport expansion project. We have DOD projects, a lot of different projects. And so Mayor Touchberry and anybody else and our Chief of Police here in Somerville, Chief Wright, but anyone who works at a government organization or any agency or organization looking for funding, we write grant letters and get those done, Lisa, in 24 hours. So if you have a need for a grant, we will fulfill that request and write a letter of support for your grant application within 24 hours. I don't haze my staff if they don't do it, but we burn plugs. I'm just kidding, it's jokes. But we take it seriously because we want to make sure that we get our fair share. And we all know that this area, we give more to the feds, we give more to the state than any other region of the state, but we don't always get a good ROI. I want to make sure that we get a good ROI. And that's something that's very important. And at the end of the day, you'll often see us argue and fight over the amount of spending that's happening at the federal level because it's too much. We can all agree it's too much. But once those funds and resources are appropriated, I'm going to make sure that our district gets its fair share, and that is the difference. I know I get a lot of questions about infrastructure. We had that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, so before I get my first question about it, I want you all to know that the federal DOT said our state got $6 billion in that bill. When the facts of the matter are, and you can check this with SCDOT, 5 of that $6 billion we were already gonna get no matter what. That's what we get, $1 billion a year from the feds every year no matter what. So our state only got $1 billion extra dollars. The other thing that rubbed me the wrong way about that bill is that the broadband stuff was good because we need that in rural areas. But when we're talking about traditional roads and bridges, only $110 billion was allotted for surface transportation, or what you and I would call roads and bridges. Of that $110 billion, $70 billion was going to public transportation, which we need. However, that only left $40 billion for roads and bridges nationwide. $40 billion. The Wando Bridge, the Don Holt Bridge, each of those bridges are $1 billion a piece. I mean, I could spend $1 billion a mile down the road and we would still need more. And so, it's really important that we look at not only the amount of money that we're spending, but actually look under the hood and say, how are we spending that money? And I want to work smarter, not harder. The same thing goes with the debt ceiling bill last year. That bill, generated by Republicans, by the way, Republicans are just as bad as Democrats on spending, but is going to saddle our nation with $50 trillion in debt. And for every good idea, every good rescission, every good idea to cut government spending, on the very next page there was a loophole on how to get around that great idea. And I bring that up because we recently had a border bill. The Senate called it a border security bill. It was not a border security bill. Because for every good idea, every decent idea to secure the border, on the very next page was a loophole to get around that really good idea. So there was a lot of talk about that border security bill, about the 5,000 figure, and then shutting down the border. I've never seen the federal government under any administration shut down the border for a day. Who's ever seen that? Like, that's never actually happened. Like, I dare the administration to do that for a day. I think every American, regardless of politics, would like to see what does that look like, because we all know that that's not true. But also with the $5,000 limit, there were so many exceptions, so many exemptions for that limit. There were no limits at all. So forget about the 150,000 illegals coming across the southern border every month, the 1.8 million every year. It would be much higher than that. And I didn't support the measure. It never came to the House, never made it out of the Senate, because people stood up and spoke out against it. They spoke out against it because they actually read the bill. Our staff, first Sean, my legislative director, Tim and his legislative staff, it took us about 8 hours to get through the bill, and then we went on social media, we went on X, and it's @Rep Nancy Mace, where you can follow us on there. But when we have large, extensive bills, we will go line by line, page by page, and explain what's actually in the bill, which is what we did. We did it for the debt ceiling bill, we did it for the border bill, but when we looked at the border bill, it was mass amnesty. It wasn't anything else. And this administration has only tried or wanted to build 21 miles of wall. They took back Title 42, remain in Mexico. We just can't keep doing what we've always been doing. I blame both parties for a lot of the problems that we have today, whether we're talking about immigration and the border or we're talking about spending. Both parties are part of the problem. So, that's something that I want to impress upon. We are part of a lot of conversations behind the scenes. I will tell you one of my greatest disappointments, and I'm a little jaded right now, but one of my greatest disappointments is seeing members of my own party kill good legislation. So we were going to try to do a CR, a one-year CR this year to get through the year. Instead, we had to do a short-term CR, but I sat in meetings with the speaker and with other members of my party, different factions, who refused to tie border security to spending. And we have to do that before we address Ukraine, before we address Taiwan, before we do anything else. And to see us sabotage ourselves, we know what the nation wants. We know whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, we all want the same thing, but we want it legitimately. We want real border security. We don't want to pay lip service to it. And what I will not do is I will not lie to you. I will tell you the truth, no matter the consequences, and I think I've proven that over and over and over again. I go with facts and not fiction. And so that was a big one that came out a couple weeks ago. We will address spending again, the first week of March 1st, March 8th, in there. We'll have to revisit the spending issues that we have. I hope that we will do border security, but the other myth that's out there is that Republicans didn't do border security. Well, last May, we passed H.R. 2, one of the toughest border security bills in the history of Congress. It went to Schumer's desk, where it has stayed. We also had a Homeland Security bill last year, appropriations bill, with border security that Senator Schumer refused to take up. And so I don't buy the argument that Republicans don't have a way, don't have leadership, don't have a bill. We've had multiple bills that the Senate refuses to negotiate on. And I hope that the Speaker will hold the line and use that as a negotiating tool for everything else, because that's what's necessary. And we are in a place, believe it or not, where MS-13 gang members have been arrested. Just up the road 3 years ago in Goose Creek, there was a human trafficking bust where 28 people were arrested in Goose Creek for human trafficking. We had a sex trafficking bust right here in Somerville. 20 people were arrested 2 years ago right here in Somerville. And it is a hidden pandemic, it's a hidden endemic, whatever you want to call it, but it's here. Not to mention when our law enforcement are exposed to fentanyl, and then they have to deal with the consequences of their health at that. But 10 years ago, I didn't know what fentanyl was. But this year alone, in the last 12 months, I've known 2 people that have died from overdoses. One was a teenager, one was an adult. Fentanyl is here in mass. And so these are the things that keep me up at night. I work very hard. We work on legislation, we file bills, we pass bills, not only out of committee, but out of the floor of the House. We're a very productive office, and we love the job that we're doing. And with that, Lisa's waving at me, and she's saying it's time for questions. So with that, I will take your questions, and you can ask us anything, just not political. I can talk politics after. All right, raise your hand if you have a question. Don't be shy. This gal up here has a question.
I'm not sure if this is political or not. Are you familiar with Project 2025?
I have heard of it, but I'm not sure. It's a heritage foundation.
Because I heard one of your talks. You're really for women's rights.
Yes, I'm for women's rights.
And with Project 2025, they will take away all the women's rights as far as, even birth control.
Well, I'm not for that, for sure. I've been working on women's issues quite a bit, including access to birth control, and well, I'm going to talk about that for a minute, but what's your question?
Just one more other question. Excuse me. If you would be willing maybe to talk to me. I'm a J6 defendant. I went to prison for 2 months for January the 6th, and nobody will speak to me. I wrote a letter to Congress about that day. So if you'd be
I'm happy to talk to you about it. Have you called our office? Because to this day, I don't know of a single J6 defendant that's called our office, to my knowledge.
Yeah,
well, we're happy to talk about it. Lisa's sitting right behind you. I'm happy to talk to you about it. But on women's issues, that's another issue that I have championed. Believe it or not, in South Carolina, we have 14 counties without a single OBGYN doctor. So when we're talking about reducing the number of abortions in our state, access to birth control is a problem. There are women in rural and poor areas that can't get access to birth control because there is no OBGYN doctor. Now, right around the time that Roe v. Wade was overturned, Governor Master signed a bill into law. It was Senator Tom Davis's bill out of Beaufort, and it would allow pharmacists to give prescription birth control pills to women at the pharmacy instead of having to go to their doctor. So a lot of people will say, oh, well, access to birth control is not a problem. It is a problem. And there are women out there that cannot get it. And so that's an issue that I have championed. The other issue that I've championed are all the exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. We have a bill, Sean, we've talked about it, we've been working on it for several months, that would expedite the processing of rape kits in this country. There is a backlog of over 100,000 rape kits that are sitting on shelves in every single state, and we want to wipe out that backlog and get those rape kits processed. And that not only helps the victim of rape, and as you all know, I've told my story, I am a survivor of rape, but that DNA can be used to solve other crimes in addition to those rape victims, and so it's so important that we address that issue. And with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we have to show compassion to women and girls. I've been very vocal on that issue. We continue, and Sean is leading an effort where we continue to put forth a portfolio of legislation. Even revenge porn is one of those topics that we're talking about now. Violence Against Women Act didn't do a lot for women, come to find out, and we're looking at ways to strengthen the Violence Against Women tort that was signed into law and actually make those things against the law under Title 18. And so we are working on a whole slate, we continue, of issues related to women's rights, and we're still breaking glass ceilings. It didn't end in 1999 when I graduated from the Citadel, but there's so much we can do, and consider us a champion for women. And if you have an idea, please come talk to us, give us that idea. We're working through a lot of different great ideas that we've been filing bills, and we're going to continue to file through the rest of this session. Something I'm very, very passionate about. Thank you for your question. All right, yes, sir. One right over here. Okay.
First off, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Again, try not to get a political question, but my wife tries to not take in any of the news. I try to take in as much as I can handle. So America's kind of at a boiling point, in my opinion, right? With immigration, inflation, everything's just kind of going haywire. So what are some things that you know that are going on, as well as like the upcoming election, of things that can help kind of relieve the mind of, you know, the local citizens and American citizens?
So is it a question about election integrity, or?
Well, you know, the speculation of the last election.
Yeah.
So is there any kind of measures or anything that is going to ensure some more security of that issue?
I would say on election integrity, South Carolina is unlike a lot of other states. So we actually have really strong election laws. So if you're voting absentee, there has to be a signature and a witness to get that absentee ballot. We don't have ballot drop boxes all over the state. We don't mass mail ballots. It's all verified. And I actually, the voting machines that we have, if you go in to vote, the state has done a really good job with the type of voting machine. So you have a paper ballot, you feed it into the machine, you do your selection, and then it prints it back out where you can verify like a paper ballot, and then it gets scanned into another machine where it's counted. And so I believe that we have one of the strongest electoral systems in the country, and we even allow you to vote 2 weeks early. So from that standpoint, from election integrity, we do a good job. Now, what we don't do a good job of, and I would say this is probably true for every state, is we don't purge our voter rolls, but I believe every 6 years. I think voter rolls should be purged every year or two because people move, people pass away, there are changes in change of address, etc. So from a data standpoint, that's something that's a state level thing, not a federal thing, but that could be improved at our level. But I'd say we have some of the strongest election laws, no matter your political affiliation, in the country, and we should all be really proud. And believe that our elections are secure here because they are. I believe that they are. Y'all are an easy bunch. I'm not gonna bark or bite. Okay, we got two more over here.
Just quickly, I have some people I know who are cynical and they say call in your office or any other House representative or senator is just a waste of time because it just doesn't go anywhere. I want to know what your response would be to that.
I would say in our office that's not true. We do get overwhelmed with phone calls and emails. I would say on a daily basis, over 1,000. I mean, like, we get hundreds, if not 1,000 phone calls and emails. Even sometimes on a daily basis, depends when I said that day, but we get a lot of phone calls and emails. Now, I don't look at what people outside the district have to say. We sort the data, and we respond to people inside the district first. But I get a weekly report of how many phone calls, how many emails, and then what issues people care about the most, what's on their mind, and then where do they stand on the issue. Because I work for you, I don't work for anybody else, and it's a good barometer or good temperature on where the district is. So for example, with regards to the border, everybody is pro-border all the way, regardless of your party affiliation. When it comes to Israel aid, 95% of the district wants aid to Israel. When it comes to Ukraine, we're about 50-50 right now in terms of the feedback. But we look at that feedback on what people are feeling, the temperature, and what kind of legislation they want us to sponsor. We get ideas for bills. And if I'm not on a bill that you want us to consider, send us an email, call us, we'll track it, we'll read it, we'll look at it. But we listen to the feedback from people in the district. We sort out the people who are not from here or don't live here. So, yeah, we'll listen. There's two more, Lisa, over here. Gentleman in blue and this lady in white. Right here, blue and then white.
Yes, thanks for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to ask a question. You brought up three topics, the border, Israel, and Ukraine. How is it, or what can you do to separate those issues when it comes to funding? As much as it might be important to want to support Israel, which is really great, and we might want to support Ukraine, which I have my doubts because we keep sending money with and nothing in sight, nothing to show for it, basically, no end game, if you will. But how can it be possible by any rational U.S. citizen that the border is being used as a bargaining chip for these other ongoing conflicts? The border, at least the way that I look at it, unless we have a secure border, we don't have a sovereign country. If we don't have a sovereign country, we can give money to everywhere in the world. That's really great. You know, God love us, that's what Americans do. We reach out and line up people that we're going to need. And I don't want to necessarily be an isolationist by saying that, but how could the border of our security possibly be used as a bargaining chip? Well, we'll give you the border money, and you were saying earlier about what would it be in a bill, would it not be in a bill. How can we possibly put that and tie that to anything else?
Within both parties, there are factions. So you might have the Freedom Caucus, you might have Defense Caucus, you might have the moderates, you might have centrists. I'm a caucus of one. I operate on my own. But there are different groups with different agendas. I will tell you, I was in the Speaker's office. This is behind the scenes. I was in the Speaker's office a couple weeks ago when we were trying to figure out the path forward on spending bills, whether we were going to do a CR or a short-term spending plan or do the budget appropriations, etc. But we had a group, most of the defense hawks, who wanted to use border security as a wedge to get Ukraine aid. So they would vote down any spending measure, short or long term, if it had border security attached to it. Republicans, not Democrats, Republicans sabotaging any spending that had the border security tied to it because they wanted to use it as a bargaining chip for Ukraine. So, and you can imagine why they wanted to do that. So, and I sit on House Armed Services, and it's deeply frustrating. If it were me, and I'm not in charge, I would do these appropriations and spending bills up or down separate votes. They should not be tied together so that you're on the record for one or the other, regardless. But that's not the way it always works, and you have to operate within the environment that we have today. And that's why we see what's happening. we have to address the border. In that border bill from the Senate, we were going to give Ukraine $60 billion more, and that's more than what we used to fund our Marine Corps for the year, $53 billion. And so it doesn't make sense. But if it were me as a fiscal conservative, I would have separate up or down votes about each measure so people know where you stand. Otherwise, you put in these big, giant, we call them Christmas tree bills. They throw everything in with the kitchen sink. They have supplemental aid. They get around the debt ceiling, and it's just, it's disgusting. But I saw members of my own party use it as a wedge to get what they wanted, and now the whole thing's falling apart because of that, in my opinion. And this lady in white right here.
Hi, Congressman. My name is Jennifer Newman, and I just want to thank you for being here tonight and thank your staff. I've emailed several times, called your office, and the response has always been amazing. So thanks to the whole team. My question for you is, I understand that you're on caucus for special diseases. I represent a small local company here, female owned, and we focus on Alzheimer's and dementia. That may not be one of your special diseases, but I would love to know what you do on that caucus.
Yeah, I meet with different Alzheimer's groups that come through Washington, and there are a couple of really good ones down here. The name is escaping me. I think Cheryl Flowers Woods is one of them that heads up that Alzheimer's caucus here in South Carolina, or at least in the Low Country. She'd be a good resource for you as well. They have a group that comes to DC every year, and I think she was at the last town hall, so maybe the staff could put you guys together just to make an introduction. Caucuses, they meet on occasion, they come up with ideas for bills. I'm on a lot of different caucuses for those reasons, but it's mostly like a way to springboard a different legislation or come up with ideas and work together, usually in a nonpartisan way. I do a lot of nonpartisan work, and that's what the caucuses are good for. Figure out who you can work with, who wants to work with you, and then how you want to move forward on bills.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. All right. Any other? Okay, back here.
Well, thank you for being here. In your opinion, was January 6th an insurrection or was it a riot? You don't have to follow up after your answer.
Why are we revisiting the past on January 6th? So I talked about January 6th, the day that it happened. I got a concealed carry permit because I had a lot of death threats. I was accosted the night before, and I want us to look forward, not backward. Our nation has to come together and move forward from this.
I'm looking forward, but it has affected the future of that day. And I'm just curious what your opinion was of it. Was it an insurrection? Or in your opinion, was it an insurrection? Not a
Well, no
riot.
one's in charge of insurrection as far as I know. So that should answer it for you. And to throw somebody off the ballot for an insurrection that they've not been charged for is also wrong.
Just a quick follow-up. Why do the Republicans not fight back against the term insurrection when the Democrats use it there?
You have to ask them. I don't know. I operate on my own terms. I don't always operate with the party. I operate what's right for South Carolina. Yeah, thank you. Yes, there's a question in the back?
It's not really a question, but it's what you opened up with is breast cancer. I'm BRCA1 positive. I have 4 sisters and we're all BRCA1 positive. My children inherited my gene mutation. My daughter is 31 years old. She has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. She's done everything she needs to do. She met with plastic surgeons here in South Carolina in Charleston to decide her action, what she was going to do, what reconstructive surgery. When she decided what surgery she wanted, she was denied by insurance. I helped her fight that, and we got it approved. But that's inexcusable, and that's unacceptable. 31 years old, 90% chance of breast cancer, and her insurance company is going to dictate the reconstructive surgery that she needs to have. Additionally, the access for genetic testing is horrible, and the denial of prior authorization for insurance companies is unacceptable as well. So it's not so much a question, it's a comment, and where we're going in the future, seeing all these patients who could have genetic testing, who should have genetic testing, that are denied or don't have access, and then when they do, and they decide on the right course of action, are denied by their insurance company.
You give the response because that is the exact thing that happened to me, the very first phone call. She was early 30s. It was the same exact scenario. I'm not going to ask this publicly, but I'll ask you back. I would love to know which insurance company, if it was the same one. I'm curious, but yeah, probably the same. But would love to work with you guys on that. That literally gives me goosebumps because that was the same exact scenario. It gives me chills. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. Any other? Y'all are an easy bunch. This is it. Okay. One last question. You're the belle of the ball right here. You're going to ask the final question.
I'm Susan Baughman, and I talked to you recently about Worcester Plaza Animal Shelter. And you were saying that you don't bark and you don't bite. I was wondering if there's any support from the federal government or animal welfare and taking care of that.
There is, and we will get you with Sean, or who do we want to do that, or Noah after this. So Brian Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania and I compete for the most animal rights work in Congress. We're on the Republican side. So he and I compete for having the most animal rights, animal welfare legislation. So would love to talk to you about that. We'll get you with Noah and help if there are any grants out there. We'll help identify. We work with a lot of animal rights groups, animal welfare groups. I'm really proud of the animal rights work that we've done. It's the one place, regardless if you're QAnon or if you're squad, everybody loves their dog. And it's actually been a place where I've been able to do a lot of meaningful work across the aisle for animals. We've got Morgan Island down in Beaufort County, which is nicknamed Monkey Island. They're taking hundreds, over 500 monkeys a year from that island for animal testing. That's something we've been working on shutting down. But we do an incredible amount of work, but we'll love to get you with Noah. He's sitting right here and figure out how we can help you guys. We're more than happy. Yeah. Thank you so much. And then lastly, before I say goodbye, if you want to stop a photo, we'll do a photo line starting maybe right here and go this way. RJ can manage it. But if you want to shake a hand, take a photo, or ask me a personal private question, I'm more than happy to do that. I'll stick around for a few minutes. I want to say thank you for coming out tonight. If we can help you see April's in the pink in the back. We will help you in any way that we can. Thank you all, and God bless each and every one of you. Good night.